We often think the biggest dangers to humanity are things we can see: wars, natural disasters, or major climate events. But some of the most dangerous enemies are completely invisible. They hide in remote forests, carried silently by animals, just waiting for the right moment to cross into human life. One of these threats is the Nipah virus, and it's one of the deadliest viruses known to science. Nipah isn't some ancient disease from the history books. It was only discovered in recent decades, and it's a virus that scientists are still watching very closely. Because when it does appear, the consequences are devastating. The story of the Nipah virus starts in 1998 in Malaysia. Farmers started to notice a strange illness spreading among their pigs. It wasn't long before the people working closely with those animals also began falling sick. But this was no ordinary flu. Victims developed high fevers, became confused, and suffered from severe brain inflammation. Doctors were baffled. At first, they suspected Japanese encephalitis, but the symptoms and the way it spread didn't match. They realized they were dealing with something entirely new. Scientists eventually traced the outbreak to a previously unknown virus. They named it Nipah after the village where the first samples were identified. The source of the virus was a complete surprise: fruit bats. These bats, also known as flying foxes, carried the virus without ever getting sick themselves. But when the virus jumped from the bats to pigs, and then from pigs to humans, the results were catastrophic. More than 100 people died in that first outbreak. To stop the spread, over 1 million pigs had to be culled. A new zoonotic virus had just made its presence known to the world. So, how exactly does Nipah spread? Unlike many common viruses, it doesn't spread easily through casual contact like a cold or the flu. But when transmission does happen, it's often extremely severe. The virus can spread from bats to other animals, like pigs or horses. It can then pass from those animals to humans. And in some outbreaks, it has even spread directly from person to person. When someone gets infected, the initial symptoms might seem mild fever, headache, muscle pain, just like a bad flu. But the illness can quickly escalate. It can progress to severe brain inflammation, known as encephalitis, which can cause seizures and lead to a coma. The fatality rate is alarmingly high. In some outbreaks, up to 75% of those infected have died. To make matters worse, there is no specific cure and no widely available vaccine. Treatment is focused entirely on supportive care, managing the symptoms and trying to keep the patient stable. This is why every single outbreak, no matter how small, triggers global concern. After the initial outbreak in Malaysia, Nipah began to appear in other places, this time in Bangladesh and parts of India. The way it spread was different here. Transmission often happened when people drank raw date palm sap that had been contaminated by fruit bats. In other cases, family members and healthcare workers became infected while caring for sick patients. These outbreaks were smaller in scale, but often even deadlier. Hospitals became high-risk zones, and medical teams had to act with incredible speed to isolate cases and trace every single contact. In the state of Kerala, India, several Nipah outbreaks have shown just how quickly this virus can emerge and how critical a rapid response is. Strict quarantine measures, intensive contact tracing, and public awareness campaigns were crucial in preventing a wider spread. But each time Nipah reappears, it's a stark reminder that the virus is still out there, hiding in nature, ready to resurface at any moment. So, why are scientists so worried about Nipah? The World Health Organization has classified it as a priority pathogen. This isn't because it spreads easily right now, but because of its potential. If the virus were to mutate and become more efficient at spreading between humans, the consequences could be catastrophic. Nipah belongs to the same family of viruses as the Hendra virus, another dangerous bat-borne disease. These viruses are a perfect example of how human expansion into wildlife habitats increases the risk of these spillover events. Deforestation, the wildlife trade, and other environmental changes are bringing humans and wild animals into closer contact than ever before, creating the perfect opportunity for viruses like Nipah to jump the species barrier. The symptoms of a Nipah infection often start quietly: a fever, a headache, a feeling of fatigue. But within days, some patients start developing neurological symptoms: confusion, dizziness, and difficulty breathing. The most severe cases progress to encephalitis, the dangerous inflammation of the brain. For those who survive, the battle isn't always over. Some suffer from long-term neurological problems. Others experience a relapse where the symptoms return months or even years later. This unpredictability is another reason the virus is so feared. Because of this danger, public health systems around the world treat every Nipah outbreak as a potential emergency. The response involves rapid diagnosis, immediate isolation of patients, and the use of protective gear for all healthcare workers. Surveillance is increased in the affected regions to catch any new cases early. Research into vaccines and treatments is ongoing, but that kind of progress takes time. Until then, prevention is our best and only defense. This means reducing contact with potentially infected animals like bats and pigs. In areas where date palm sap is harvested, it means using protective coverings on the collection pots to keep bats away. And most importantly, it means educating communities about the risks and how to protect themselves. The Nipah virus is a powerful reminder that the next global health crisis might already be out there, quietly existing in nature. It shows us just how fragile the boundary is between human society and the wild. It highlights the critical importance of global surveillance, scientific research, and being prepared for the unexpected. And it demonstrates that in our deeply interconnected world, an outbreak that starts in a single village can quickly become a concern for the entire planet. The enemy is not always visible. Sometimes it flies silently through the night. Thanks for watching.